What is up, everybody? It's Madlibbs, and I just want you guys to know that I'm very, very excited for this episode, and I'm gonna show you why right now. Every time I see that goddamn picture, it does not get old. Look at this motherfucker. I don't know what was wrong with me, or why I thought that robots looked like this. I didn't know how machines worked, apparently, but there he is. His name is Randy, and he's the awful OC that we're going to be talking about in this week's episode of Awful OCs. Are you guys ready? Because I'm fucking not. Alright, let's get started. So this dude over here, this beautiful robot boy, his name was Randy, as I already said. Why'd I say it again? I don't know. Anyway, he was the very first villain that I ever created in my horrible series known as Code Red. Basically, after I made the good guy, Mark, the cyborg boy, I wanted to make an evil cyborg, because that's clearly the next step in stories. Once you make the good guy, you just make like a evil version of him. Boom, there's your bad guy. Da-da-da-da, check, double check. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, and since this was my first villain that I ever created, I got a little carried away with him. And he basically became every stupid Mary Sue, or in this case, Gary Stu, which is the male version of Mary Sue, for those of you who don't know. Ba-da-da, you learn something every day. Anyway, he became this horrible Gary Stu sort of villain that every 12-year-old makes for, like, creepypasta OCs. And just in case you don't believe me on that, I'm gonna prove it with this list right here. And as I go through his backstory and his current story and all that stuff, I'm gonna check things off the list. So, let's start off with his backstory. Now, just a heads up really quick, he had two backstories. The good guy one and the bad guy one. The difference is that the good guy one is the backstory that all the good guys in the story believe. The one that, you know, like the legend of this super evil bad guy. And the bad guy one is the real story. The one that, you know, he tells because it's how it actually happened. Basically, this guy was supposed to be the misunderstood, angsty, oh, the poor guy villain. And, I mean, all my villains were like that, but he was the first one. He was the OG guilt trip villain. So we'll start with the good guy backstory. So in the good guy backstory, Randy, or as his real name was, Randall, and just as a side note, this guy's full name, I never really mentioned it in the story, aside from, like, when you have to say somebody's full name, but his full name was Randall Savage. So I inherently made this man the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Hogan, I remember way back when the mega powers were bonded. Yeah, you made a lot of promises to the Macho Man, didn't you?
I actually figured it out like maybe a week after I came up with his name, but then I was just like, but it's such a cool name, Savage, because he's a savage guy. So I kept it anyway. So good old Macho Man Randy Savage was the Macho Man in the WPC. I know that there's always a pause before I say that in every episode where I have to say it, but it's because I hate saying it. The World Protection Corporation, the secret agency he was a part of. Anyway, he was over there, and he was the coolest dude over there, dude. He, like, was the top agent, missions good, and all the ladies wanted him because he was just such a hunk. He was such a hunk of a man with his fucking frosted tips and his sleeveless shirts. Good old Randall, good old Mr. Savage was the coolest dude. But then the accident happened. Now, I was never really clear on what the accident was. I never really had an idea for what it was supposed to be. I guess I just never got around to it. I was fine just being like, oh, the accident. The closest thing I can remember to a specific incident was one that a friend of mine who has been watching and commenting on all these videos, thank you so much by the way, came up with. Because we were going to write the story together. Like, we were going to make it a webcomic together. He was going to help me with the specifics, I was going to come up with the ideas, yada yada. Anyway, he came up with the idea that he was with, like, in a war zone and he stepped on a landmine. And since that's the closest thing to a specific event, we're going to go with that. So this super James Bond secret agent stepped on a landmine and, like, got blown up. And then he went to the hospital, and he got some robo bits on him. I think all he really got was a robot arm. Anyway, he got that, and then he started to like it. He thought it was so cool to be a robot. He was like, yo, dude, this robot arm is the shit, and I want more robot bits. So he started, like, hacking off limbs so that he could add more robo bits until he became more machine than human. and then out of nowhere one day he was just like, yo, I'm gonna join the bad guy side, which is called Sinister, which is probably the second stupidest name ever next to WPC. It doesn't even stand for anything. It's just called Sinister. Maybe it was supposed to stand for something, but I'm bad at acronyms. Anyway, I'm off track. He went over there and he just fucking destroyed some of the bases of WPC. And then from that day forward, he was like, yo, I'm a bad guy now. That was the good guy backstory, the one that all the agents tell. They're like, oh, you haven't heard of Randy, the scariest name for a villain, Randy. Anyway, sorry, I'm having way too much fun with this because I feel like this one was particularly bad in its own special way. So, anyway, that was the good guy backstory. Now we're gonna go to the bad guy backstory, the real story. Everything, is the same up until the point where he gets the robo arm. So everything's fine. He steps on the landmine, all that. He gets the robo bit. But, there's a little more angst to the story than all the other good guys lead on. You see, he didn't add more robo bits because he wanted to. He added more robo-bits because he kept getting into various accidents, which, by the way, if he was supposed to be, like, the top agent, then why does he keep getting into terrible accidents that cost him, like, limbs? I don't know. Maybe, like, it was supposed to be that he was so offset and his mood was so, like, oh my god, what's wrong with me by having the robo-arm that it threw off his game or something? I don't know. That makes a lot more sense, but I doubt I thought of it because I was really dumb back then when I made this. So he gets more robo-bits, and then he starts to get a little bullied, All the agents start laughing at him like, ha ha, you have no arms, you have robot arms, ha ha. Why did I... It just hit me now. Why would they bully him for that? That's so mean. That's like if somebody came up and they had like a prosthetic leg and you pointed at them and you're like, ha ha, you have one leg, you weirdo. You have a leg that's not the same as your other leg because it's not real. Like that was the whole thing, is that he was bullied really badly because he lost body parts. I'm sorry, I know I'm going on about this, but I'm just realizing how stupid and confusing that is. That's so terrible. What kind of world was my world in, where people make fun of you when you lose limbs? Anyway, I'm gonna get back to it. People bullied him really, really hard. They bullied him real bad, All except for one person. One specific person who was like 5 years younger than him, and in the story he's supposed to be like 16 or 17. Wait, hold on, I have to remember how old he was supposed to be. He was supposed to be, I think, 18. And he had a friend who was like 13, and I don't know how they met, because it's a really odd kind of gap to have, like an 18-year-old and a 13-year-old just being friends. Like, it wasn't like their parents knew each other, or they, like, family friends. They just were friends. Anyway, he had this best friend, and he accepted him no matter what. No matter the robo-bits. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention that was a huge part of the story was that his face got all, like, screwed up. Like, just his mouth, though, like, he got a bunch of cuts on his mouth, and, like, everybody was like, ew, you look gross. Which is why he wears a mask in the sort of later design I had of him, where I toned down the robot bits a little bit. I mean, it still doesn't look good, but it's a little better than this. That's a lie. This is a lot better just because it's funnier. But anyway, he had a best friend, and they were buddies, and even though he got bullied, he was like, it's okay, man. I still love you. Me, the 13-year-old boy. But then, all that changed when the Car Nation attacked. And by that I mean the friend got hit by a car. I think one of the plots that was supposed to happen was that his friend pushed him out of the way of the car, and then, he died, and then Randy blames himself, because he's like, if I didn't step in front of a car, he wouldn't have died. So his friend dies, and then he has nobody. And that's when he puts on the bad guy mask. And then he's like, yo, all these people are bullying me because I lost limbs. That's really fucked up. I'm gonna go to the bad guy side now. And then everything else, works out the same. He goes over and joins the agency with the terrible name, and he's the bad guy forever. So, now that we're done with his backstory, I just want to check some things off the list. So, he used to have the perfect life. Check. He had a mysterious accident that screwed up his body. Check. He was bullied a lot. Check. He had a childhood friend that he lost. Check. Losing his only friend made him turn to the dark side. Check. And now he's misrepresented by all the people who don't like him. Check. That's like almost the whole list already. So, we're not off to a good start. Or we're off to a very good start, depending on how you're watching this. And now that we're done with that, we should move on to the current story. So I already mentioned his evil guy mask, and that was actually supposed to be a really big part of the story. And if I'm being 100% honest, I actually like that sort of thing that I had going with the mask. Like, he put it on, and a lot of people are like, oh, it's just an evil part of his outfit, but he does it to hide his face because he's secretly insecure. I don't know. I know it's really cheesy and kind of dumb, but personally, I thought that I was, like, it wasn't a good idea necessarily, but I feel like I was going in a good direction, you know what I mean? Oh, by the way, that's another thing off the list. He's a tough guy, and he's secretly super insecure. A check. Alright, back to the more current story. So, you know, he's got this mask thing, he's a super bad guy, secret agent, yada yada yada. And then, like, all the other bad guys from, like, different parts of the story, they all do their thing, and they come over and they're like, yo, Randy, what's up? We want to join. We don't want to join you, but we want you to join us if that's cool. Like, can we use your resources and not be part of, like, your actual agency, but can we just, like, go fuck shit up together? Like, that'll be fun, right? And he was like, yeah, sure, why not? I don't even know what, like, this group of bad guys, because, like, the whole bad guy team, like, the multiple bad guys, because you know how some stories have multiple, like, antagonists, I did too, like, my story did, but they were all one group together, which is really weird once you know who all these people are. Like, we have an ancient demon, a mutant, a frail scientist, girl, and, scary robot man who's actually the head of a terrorist organization, but he wants to hang out with this ragtag group of other guys because they're cool, I guess? I don't know. Anyway, so he joins them and all that good stuff. They're fighting WPC, and then he finds out secretly that this whole time his best friend is alive. And he's on the other side. He's on the side that he swore he would never return to. And by the way, if you're wondering, his friend's alive, but his friend did die. There's a weird, like, thing behind it. He, like, was resurrected. There's a whole story on this terrible dumpster fire of a character. If you want to watch it, it's right here. I'm not going to get into it. But anyway, he finds out that he's alive, which, by the way, is another thing off the list. His childhood friend isn't actually dead, but he's on the opposite side. By the way, while all this is going on, Randy is, like, hella gay. I also kind of liked this part of the story, probably because it was pretty much the only gay relationship in my whole story that wasn't being focused on being gay. Like, it was the only one that wasn't a result of my terrible phase where I fetishized gay relationships, which I've mentioned before, and I'm completely disgusted by the fact that I used to do that. And sadly, pretty much all my gay or lesbian relationships in my story were there either because I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool and progressive if I had the gay? And, ooh, what's this? Is this the gay? Like, but this was the only relationship where it was more focused on actual characters and how they work together. So, your boy Randy, he's the tough dude. And he ends up talking to this guy over here. His name is Joseph, and he's a scientist. And he's not actually a bad guy in this part of the story. He used to be a bad guy, but that's a whole other episode. And he's like this really shy, really frail kind of like, oh, hi, I just want a friend. How are you? And they start talking, and I never really figured out how they would develop their relationship because I was terrible at writing, and I still am to an extent. But long story short, they developed their relationship with this sort of, like, angry tough guy and, like, really frail sweetheart kind of, like, relationship. And I was gonna have this one specific thing where something happens to Randy, like his mouth, and Joseph has to take off his mask to check how he's doing, which I totally didn't steal from the Dramatical Murder anime scene where, you know, he has to take the mask off of Claire. And he has to take the mask off of him to check if he's okay. And then Randy's like, I'm horrible, aren't I? I'm a monster. And Joseph's like, nah, you're cool, man. And he's like, wait, really? And basically what that's supposed to do is, like, slowly throughout the series, Randy was going to stop wearing his mask because he's more confident because, you know, this guy Joseph is making him more confident about it. And that was supposed to, like, develop their relationship. I don't know. Again, it's stupid and cheesy, but personally, I feel like while it wasn't a good idea itself, I was going in a good direction, you know what I mean? So there was all this, and everything was nice, and then Joseph died. He was brutally murdered by these two horrible people. So that's another one off the list. His love interest was murdered. So, after all of that, Randy is a very sad boy. He's a sad robot. And then one day, in a sad rage, he runs into a battle. He knows that he can't win. I don't even remember what was happening. All I remember, it was just like a bunch of people with guns, and Randy ran in, and he was like, dude, I'm gonna fight all these people with guns. Everyone was like, no, You can't fight all these people with guns, you fucking idiot. They have guns. And he's like, I don't care. So he runs in. And obviously he can't win, because it's a bunch of people with guns. And he gets shot to death. And that checks the last thing off the list. Dying a sad, tragic, dramatic, sad, very, very sad, suicidal death. There's also another ending where after Joseph dies, he just decides to stop being a bad guy because, like, it's taking too much of a toll on him and he doesn't want this life anymore, and he just kind of walks off into the sunset. But that one isn't as dramatic as the one where he kills himself, so, you know, whatever. And now that I'm done reliving all my shame, I can show you guys this, the new and improved, redesigned Randy. Oh god, I'm still gonna call him that because it's funny. I decided to tone down the amount of robo bits as much as I like this picture right here. I decided that maybe I should tone it down since I still don't really know how a robot, like half robot person would function. I decided to just give him one eye, and I made the skin around it all fucked up, and I made his mouth all fucked up still because I thought that was interesting, and I thought that whatever accident made him lose his eye, maybe that's what fucked up his face or something like that. And I also decided that since he was supposed to be a really angry character in the old version, and I kind of liked that, I was gonna go all the way with it, make him some kind of like ex-army guy, like some war-hardened dude who's got the bags under his eyes and is smoking cigarettes because he's too cool for school. I'm kidding. Don't smoke, kids. It's a bad habit. But he can smoke because he's a cool guy. Anyway, I really don't know too much about this guy beyond that. I'm actually very proud of the design here. I feel like I made his torso a little too big and his head a little too small. If you guys see anything else that you want to criticize or point out, then please tell me, because I love hearing your guys' criticisms, because how else would I improve? Anyway, that's pretty much all I got for this guy. The only thing he's missing is a backstory, but I don't have one because I'm not going to do anything with this character, so why don't you guys come up with one? Tell me, what's his backstory? What happened to his face? How'd he get a robo-eye? What war was he in? Was he in a war? I don't know until you tell me. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and definitely don't forget to subscribe and join the madness. See ya!